At my calculus group that's right there, when class starts, they feel like they're a little too close for me, and they just like all back up. And so that group did back up since yesterday, and I didn't fix it. So you are far, because the calculus kids apparently don't need more of me in their lives. They're like, it's been every single day all year. We can start to back away now. It's a little rude. I'm kind of hurt, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm not that hurt. All right. So Ting, calculator, come here. All right. We're gonna go ahead and start graphing this first one. We are jumping right into math. It's a shocker because I'm very good at being off task all the time. Me too. That was sarcasm because I do lots of stuff all the time. All right. There's the equation. Carter, where's your calculator? All right, so we're graphing it. Okay. When the instructions say the function, what does it mean by the function? Y. Okay. So this says when is y negative? Okay. Can you guys tell me where should I look on the graph to see where y is 0? Yeah, the x-axis, those are the y-intercepts. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write right here. Let's go ahead and label those. This is where y equals 0. This is where y equals 0. Okay. Where are the y values negative then? Below. Okay. So Harland, right here, we're just going to say this is where the y values are negative. I told you because you were talking while I was talking. I just want to make sure you heard. But it was while I was talking. Just let you know. Just want to make sure. All right. So if we want to see where y is negative, we're going to have to figure out what those x-intercepts are first, because it appears that it's in between those. That's where the y value is negative. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you, Cameron, for letting me know. Appreciate it. I was asking the whole class, but I do appreciate one person sharing. All right. So here's my graph. I need to find the x-intercepts. What is your preferred method for finding the x-intercepts? Okay, so we like doing the second trace number 2. We don't want to graph the second line into the intersection. I can do it either way. Yeah, is there a certain way? You want me to remind you of the other way? Okay, so the other way was to take y2 and graph it as y equals 0. That's going to graph the x-axis for us. And then when we look for the x-intercepts, we can just find the intersection of the curve with the x-axis. And yeah, and sometimes it makes it a little easier. So I would do second trace, and this time I would do number 5 because I just want to see where the x-axis and the curve are intersecting each other. So I just get it kind of so it's like nearby one of them, and then I press enter, enter, enter. All right, so one of the x-intercepts is 2.293. This is the answer to number 10, right? What are the zeros of the function? So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. 2.293. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the process again. So second trace, number 5. But this time I'm going to go closer to the other one, and then enter, enter, enter. You just have to be close to it. If you're not close to it, we'll find the first one again. So it doesn't have to be right on top of it. The calculator will find it, no problem. You just have to make sure. Say it again. Okay. So we got those. Now, I have some students, when they are doing problems like this, all they do is they hit the trace button and they start moving the cursor and they just try to get it that way. That's a great way to get no credit. All right, because I'm asking for accuracy to 3 decimal places and you're not going to get it like that. Does that make sense? Okay, so we don't just try to randomly, we don't try to like get closer to it. We don't do it like that because it's not accurate. All right. So if I know that this x value is 2.293, and I know that that x value is 3.707, then how do I answer question 9? where is the y value negative? Yeah.
Did you write the number 10 as coordinates?
Yeah, so you could say x equals these two numbers. So this is not me writing it as a coordinate. This is me just putting the x values. Or if you wanted to write it as coordinates, you could put 2.293, comma 0.
Would you still put the x with the squiggly line?
I just did the squiggly line because I was showing that I rounded.
Sweet or savory?
Oh gosh. Sweet. Let's be real.
Cranberry orange.
Orange.
No, cranberry orange.
Oh.
Take orange. I cut them in half because they're huge.
Ooh, wait. What kind is a savory?
Cheddar.
I'll take cheddar.
Take one.
I know it's shocking. It's shocking. Ooh. And this one's lighter. You could, ooh.
Well, because they had less of them, and I prefer the orange. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you go to Reed's?
Did you take an orange one and have your water, your creamsicle water?
Ooh, I could do that, but no, I was scarfing it down with coffee.
Ah, fair.
It's too early
Fair.
for the other.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoy. Let me know what you think.
Yes.
I think they're pretty spectacular.
Appreciate it. It's a cheese scone from whatever that place was that was listed on there. All right. So we know that in between, that's where the y values are negative. So how do I write that as an answer for number 9?
Wait, can we say y is this number?
Well, we know that y is negative. So we already know if we were to say something, we would say y is less than 0. We already know that because that's what they want. So y is not going to be part of the answer. Yeah, we're going to say it's between where x equals this and where x equals that. So anything between those two. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that. We're going to put this in interval notation, so we're going to put like the commas in between. And we're going to have to decide if we should have a parenthesis or a bracket. What do you guys think? Parenthesis or bracket? Parenthesis because? Yeah, because it's in the middle. It can't be the point, right? Because what's happening at the point? It's 0 exactly. Does this say where y is 0 or a negative? No, it just says where y is negative. So we can't have brackets because the brackets are not where y would be negative. They would be where y equals 0. Does that make sense? We want in between the numbers, but we don't exactly want those numbers. So we're going to put 2 parentheses. So basically, at this point, we know increasing and decreasing are not allowed to have brackets. Domain and range are allowed to have brackets. And then when we start to do stuff like this, when we're just we're answering different questions about the function, we're going to say, okay, these could have brackets as well, depending on how the question is asked. So this time, no brackets because it didn't say equals 0. And those numbers are where it equals 0. So no brackets.
So if it's equal to or greater than or less than, that's going to be like greater than and equal to, less than equal to, even the bracket. And if it's just less than or greater than,
Exactly right. Okay. Now, we know that x and y coordinates, those don't get brackets just because we've been writing x and y coordinates for years and we've never put brackets for those, right? So when we're doing x and y coordinates, those get parentheses, and in that situation, a parenthesis doesn't mean the same thing as it does with interval notation. And the point of an x and a y coordinate, parentheses are just like, that's just how we write them. That's just what we do, okay? So when we start talking about, oh, is it brackets versus parentheses, we're not talking about x and y coordinates, we're talking about interval notation. X and y coordinates are not considered interval notation, they're just how you write x and y coordinates, okay? So these parentheses right here are different than those parentheses right there. These are parentheses because it's interval notation. These are parentheses just because we've got a point, and that's what we do. Okay. Now it says, where is f of x greater than or equal to 0? So what do they mean when they say f of x? Y. Okay, so they're saying where is y greater than or equal to 0? So these are all positive y values. So we greater than 0 right there. These are all positive y values, so y is greater than 0 right there. So we want to describe where y is greater than or equal to 0. But we're not going to say in between those, right? Because in between is where it's less than 0. So it'd be negative infinity to the first one. Okay. So we're going to say negative infinity to 2.293, because that shows it's the left side, the left piece. Say it again. Yep. And then to get this right piece, that's where we have the 3.707, the positive infinity is that part right there. We know infinities always get parentheses because you can't actually equal those. And then what do we put for these? Brackets, because it says greater than or equal to 0 this time. And if you have two answers, you put a U in between. The U means union. And it just means that it's not one answer or the other, it's both at the same time. So it's not like, ooh, you get to choose. It's like, no, you have to have both of them. No, it's specific to the interval notation. If you don't put the U, technically it's wrong, but I don't mark it down. I just go like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable, and I write the U for you. Okay. It's kind of like the squiggly equal sign, where it's like, I want you guys to get used to what it means, but if you don't put it, I'm not like mad about it. Yeah. All right, where is the function increasing? So where is the stick figure walking uphill? Okay, so from the vertex, right here, okay? And the vertex is positive 3, negative 1. Which of those numbers are we going to use? The 3, the positive 3. So the stick figure starts at positive 3 and then increases, and then what x value? Infinity. Okay, so the increasing interval is 3 to infinity. And what do I put around that? Parentheses, we don't want any dead raccoons today. Now, whenever we learn something, students are like, oh my gosh, are we going to be tested on this? Yes, but not this unit. So I'm getting you used to it because I know that these questions are kind of weird. So we're going to do it this unit, we're going to do it next unit, and then I can't remember when I started putting it on tests. Maybe it was next unit, but it might be the unit after. Okay. All right, next one, we got to graph it. So you can type in negative, you gotta be ready to graph. You can type in negative 1/3 like that if you want, or you can type it in as the fraction, negative 1/3, it does not matter. Do you guys have a preference? That way? Okay, so let's go ahead and label the picture. We've got this right here and this right here, and what is the y value of these 2 points? 0. Okay, so right here we have y is 0. Y is 0. What are the y values in the in-between part? Okay, so y is greater than 0, or you could say y is positive. And then what are the y values here? Less than 0, y is less than 0, or you could say y is negative. Over here, y is less than 0, or y is negative. Okay, so we're just going to make sure we know what all the pieces are. So let's go ahead and find those x intercepts. All right, I still have the y equals 0 for y2, so I can keep doing it the same way. So second trace intersect. So if you look at this, I'm barely closer to one than the other, but I'm not right in the middle. So I'm going to do enter, enter, enter. It's going to find it for me, even though I was far away. Mm-mm. You just have to be closer to one than the other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. So where can I put this answer? For 14, because it says what are the zeros. Do you guys want to write them as points, or do you just want to write the x values? Just the x as points? It doesn't matter. It's kind of like if someone were to ask you your name, I'd be like, oh, my name is Katie, or oh, my name is Katie Rice, and they're both right. Does that make sense? So you could say like zeros of the function. When they say zeros of the function, they're asking for x intercepts, so you could just give the x value and they know what you mean. Or you could give them the point and they still know what you mean, because you're still answering the question. All right, so second trace, number 5 again. This time, I don't have to go all the way to the second one. I just have to be a little bit closer to it. Okay, so there are the 2 zeros. And we want to answer where is the function positive. So see if you can write down the answer. We found the information that we needed. All right, anyone want to share their answer? Where's the function positive? Anyone want to share what they got?
Would it be negative 3.87, 8.87? So like in between those 2 points?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's always going to be X intercepts, because really no matter, unless it's above the line, like it's not like crossing over after that, and there's always something in between that is either negative or positive.
Yeah, so the x intercepts are important, right? Because the x intercepts are where it switches from positive to negative, and so when we answer these questions, that's what we're always going to look for. Yeah. Now these are parabolas, so they're going to kind of have that happening where it's like probably in between 2 x intercepts is one answer, and then on the other side of them is another answer. But eventually, I could give you a graph.
But what if on that one you asked for the negative?
Well, we're going to do that in a second. That's actually another problem. But if I gave you a graph like this and I asked where it was positive, you would say it's positive between these two and it's positive between those two. So once I start giving you different types of graphs, the answers could change a little bit. But for this unit, yeah, you're going to notice that those answers are pretty consistent. Yeah. Yes?
How would a graph like that even work?
It's a polynomial, so it's got like x to the 5th plus 4x to the 3rd minus 3x, whatever. It just has more stuff. Yeah. All right. So do I put brackets or parentheses around this? Parentheses, because it says positive. It doesn't say equals 0. It says positive. And so we can't include those points. We have to say just in between them. Okay, now this part right down here says where is f of x less than 0? What does that really mean? Where is y less than 0? Okay, see if you can answer that question. So we know this is one section of our answer over here. How do we write this section? Just this part. How do we write just that part? Yeah. Okay. And do we do parentheses or brackets? Yeah. So we don't do a bracket because why? It's just less than. It's not equal to this time. So the instructions changed. On this problem, they had an equal to, which is why we had a bracket that time. This time, we do not have an equal to, which is why we have a parenthesis this time. So we don't actually want to include that point. Okay. And then how do we write the other answer? Positive infinity. So it's an arrow going down. Why am I using a positive infinity if the arrow is going down? Because it's going to the right. I don't care about the fact that it's going down. I already knew it was going down because I already knew it's less than 0. I care about the fact that it's going to the right because these are all x values, right? Okay, so parentheses. And then what am I missing? The U. I have fancy toilet paper up there. It's Charmin. But I don't have any Kleenex. I just have Charmin. All right, what is the end behavior? So we always start end behavior as x goes left arrow, as x goes right arrow. Okay, so this is the left arrow, this is the right arrow. Which way is the left arrow pointing? Down. So the left arrow goes down. Which way is the right arrow pointing? Down. Okay, so the left arrow points down, the right arrow points down is our end behavior. Okay. Now we got two different functions. Now, these problems are not necessarily difficult, but you can't memorize how to do them. You actually have to understand what you're doing. Do you guys kind of see that? So it's not like, ooh, let me memorize when it says this, I write this. You just have to ask questions until you make sense of it and can understand it, which is why I'm not testing you on it right away. I want you to be able to ask lots of questions and feel good about it before I start testing you. Okay, so they said f of x is one of the parabolas, g of x is the other one. Can you guys tell which one's which? We got a black one and a gray one. The gray one is g of x, I can tell because it's upside down. Okay, so this is g of x. This is f of x. Okay. All right, so it says where does f of x equal g of x? So where they intersect. So if we look at this picture, it's going to happen right here, and it's going to happen right there. And it kind of looks like those are at nice points, but I'm not sure if they're just decimals that are like, yeah, sneaky answers. Okay, so how do we find those answers? So we're going to do second trace number 5. Enter, enter, enter. Okay, so 1, negative 5. What? Yeah. One of the reasons that the answers are kind of pretty is that you're 4 apart. And so since parabolas grow 1, 3, that's if they're 4 apart, you kind of hit them on like exactly the nice growth stuff. If they had been 5 apart, we would have had decimals. Or if they had been 3 apart, we would have had decimals. Yeah. Okay, so 1, negative 5, and then second trace number 5 again. And we're just getting closer to the other one. Okay. So technically, when they ask questions and they say where, anytime they ask a where question, they really technically just want the x values. So if you're saying where does f of x equal g of x, technically the answer is x equals 1 and x equals 3. That's technically the answer. If they said at what value does f of x equal g of x, then you would say at the value -5 and at the value -1. That's where they actually end up equaling each other's. Like at that value, those are the values that make them equal. But the location of it is the 1 and the 3. I would take both answers. So I would take the x and the y coordinate as just, that's like if somebody asks your name and you give them your first and last name. Or I would say, where are the two equal? Oh, at these x values, that's like you giving your first name when they ask for your name. Does that make sense? Okay, so both are good answers. All right, now this says, where is f of x bigger than g of x? So this is saying, where is the y coordinate from f of x bigger than the y coordinate from g of x? So f of x is the black line, g of x is the gray line. So they are asking, where is the black line above the gray line? Where is it above the gray line? So it's going to have to do with the intersections, right? Because that's where they switch. They switch which one is above the other. So if we look at the arrows, right, this arrow would keep going down forever. So if we look at the arrows, which graph is above the other one when you get started? The black one is definitely above, right? Okay, so the black one is above the gray one. That's what they were asking. So at -infinity, the black one is above. And then they get closer together, right? And then they hit this intersection, and all of a sudden the gray one is above. So this is not the answer we want, right in here? That's not what we want because the gray one is above. Okay, so how do we write that the black one was above from here to right here? How do we write that? From here to right here. -infinity to 1. Parenthesis or bracket? Parenthesis. Why is it not a bracket? The bracket would be including those points. At those points, they're equal. You don't have one above the other. You have them being equal. So we're going to do parenthesis. Okay, so the black one was on top up until we hit that intersection. Then at the intersection, the gray one is on top. It's a little bit above. So these are not the right answers. And then at this intersection, now we have the black one on top again.
What do you mean on top?
It's above. The black one is higher than the gray one.
Which part of it?
The y coordinate. Because these are y coordinates, right? So like this one at an x value of 4, this one has a y coordinate of like 3 point something. This one has a y coordinate of -2. So this y coordinate is bigger than this y coordinate. So since f of x describes the y values and g of x describes the y values, this y value is bigger than this y value. And
because when you cross on the left, it's still the infinities is what you're kind of. Okay, I was like, how are you coming from? Okay, never mind.
Does that make sense? Okay. So the black line is above the gray line. And what values are we going to write down? Say it again. 3 to infinity. So x value of 3 right here. And then all of these values, so 3 to infinity, brackets or parentheses. Parentheses. And then what goes in between? The u. Okay. Okay. Now it says, where are the functions increasing? So I'm going to color code this. Okay, so the black one is increasing right here, right? All right, so what should I write for that? That's this graph right here. What should I write for the increasing interval? Okay, 1 to infinity. So that one increases from 1 to infinity. All right, the other one increases right here. So what should I write for that one? Negative infinity to 3. Okay. So where's the overlap? Where are they both increasing at the same time?
1 to 3.
From 1 to 3. Does that make sense? They're increasing at the same time. And you can actually see it if you look at the graph, if you look at the table. So if we look at just y1, we can see right here, -1, -4, -5, those values are decreasing. You guys see that? And then after -5, they start increasing. -5, -4, -1, +4, +11, those are increasing, right? If we look at the second one, -26, -17, this is an increase because the numbers are becoming less negative. And then they hit -1 and then they start decreasing again because they're becoming more negative. You guys see that? So the only spot where the two graphs are increasing at the same time is right here from 1 to 3. -5, -4, -1, those are becoming less negative. That means they're increasing. Here, -5, -2, that -1, that means they're increasing because they're becoming less negative. So that's the only spot where both of them are increasing the y values at the same time. So that's a way to check your answer if you want. I know that this way probably doesn't make as much sense as the picture. So both functions are increasing from 1 to 3. Since this is an increasing answer, can we have brackets? Because we don't want to kill our food. Okay. If the graph of G, so if this graph was shifted to the left 1, what would its new equation be? If it was shifted to the left 1. So we would say g of x equals, it would still have that reflection. The left and right piece is what would be different. It would still be shifted down 1. So some of the transformations would be the same. But instead of the vertex being at +3, the vertex would be at +2, right? If we shifted left 1. So we would say x minus 2. All right. How are your brains feeling about these? Yeah, a little rough? Okay. This one is one with some shading. So I think you guys can do this one. I'll walk around the room and make sure you're good. I will get the answer key up for just this one. And then after this, I'm going to pass out the test review. And that's what we're going to work on for the rest of the period, is the test review. Because on Monday, we have a test. Have fun. Have fun. I just love tests. You know what I'm saying? Tests are such a great time. You know? So wonderful. All right. So work on this one. Call me over if you need help. I'm going to get the test review out.